We knew that they were going to interview Todd Monken. We just learned about Tommy Rees and Dan Pitcher, but we did also learn yesterday that they are bringing in Aden Durde, who is the defensive coordinator.
We don't even know how to pronounce his name.
No, I said
I've never heard of this guy before.
It is not a confident thing. He's currently the Seattle defensive coordinator, does not call plays.
He's not a play caller.
Assistant coach previously. He was Dallas's defensive line coach for a couple years. He was a Falcons assistant. He was the defensive coordinator for the London Warriors between 2011 and 2016. He does have a British accent, so if you're into accents, he'd be a great hire.
Cool. Yeah, I mean,
I'd love to hear him talk.
This is like the reverse Ted Lasso here.
And Earl says it's dirty, like dirty. How it's pronounced.
Yeah.
So Aden Durde.
Aden Durde. So
highly
it's an interesting story. He played football in England in college.
Right. No, I'm cool.
He played. Who knows? This guy might. This is like hiring David Blatt.
Yeah.
I feel like.
This.
Listen, he's been in the NFL for a while.
Their defense this year in Seattle is awesome.
Yeah. Now he's not the play caller, but he's part of the coaching staff. So, who knows? I mean, he does. He does satisfy the Rooney Rule too. That's. I don't want to say that's why they're interviewing him alone, but it's part of the process.
Yeah, it is.
I hate to say that. That's
the thing.
Yeah.
Which, hey, listen, we ain't got to skip around that. The NFL made that rule.
Yeah.
I ain't got to be ashamed about it. They made the rule. It basically makes a mockery out of it because
it's. I think it had good intent.
Good intentions, but in practice, it don't really work out like that. You know what I mean?
Can I say something on Dirty real quick?
Yeah.
So I got sent this by a couple of people last night. This is from Brian Nemhauser, who has 60,000 followers and is a credentialed journalist podcaster covering the Seahawks for the last 18-plus years.
Okay.
So I'm going to take what he says as at least credible in a sense.
Yeah.
You can see his bio on the screen. I'm going to read it. It's a little bit long, but this is what Brian Nemhauser said. He said, quote, "For Browns fans curious about Aden Durde, here are my observations after 2 years in Seattle. Absolute stud, knows who he is, and is always at ease. Dynamic personality, no question he could command a room and lead men. Bit of a unicorn, spent time learning on the personnel and on the coaching side. Players love him. Multiple former Cowboys came to Seattle because he was here. DeMarcus Lawrence told me personally he would not have been in Seattle if AD was not the defensive coordinator. Tireless worker, even as a DC, always getting his hands dirty with positional drills. Specializes in pass rush and edge play, always refining technique and approach. Tends to lean more towards rushing for and playing coverage versus sending extra rushers. Humble learner, does not think he's got it all figured out. Pushes Mike Macdonald while also learning from him. They're a terrific pair. Has had some play calling experience during preseason, but not during the regular season. He and Macdonald collaborate on the approach throughout games, so he has play calling influence. Smart, very little question. Will pick up what he needs to know in order to run a full team. The biggest question is lack of play calling responsibilities and pedigree. Also not clear what his offensive philosophy would be or who he would tap into for that.
I mean, based on that write-up, he sounds like a legitimate candidate that would be worth talking to. So, yeah.
He's an up-and-comer.
You never know, right?
I'm not writing off anybody, dude. I mean, we're not in these interviews and whatever. Right. Maybe it's the Rooney Rule. It satisfies that, or maybe all of a sudden because they are satisfying the Rooney Rule, they stumble upon somebody who's a really hell of a good coach. Yeah,
we didn't know what Sean McVay was before he became Sean McVay.
No.
We didn't know what Mike Tomlin was before he became Mike Tomlin. I mean, you never know.
I think the problem with when you bring in anybody as a defensive name besides Brian Flores, right? And then maybe it's just us because, like you say, we pick a name. We fixate on a name, and then that's just who it is. But we don't know what the criteria they're looking for. Now, you have Jim Schwartz here. Now, if you polled the audience and you said, we're going to bring in a new defensive mind, you say, is it Brian Flores? They say no. Most people are going to be like, well, I don't want no other defensive coach. Like, if you're going to do that, you're going to go defense.
If the Browns hired him to be the head coach, he might be we might not know he might be the greatest candidate ever. Fans are going to hate it across the board.
Yeah.
Which I get, but you can't make decisions based on the fan reation.
Right.
You just can't do that.
And plus, like, I'm gathering that, hey, if they brought him in for the interview and they thought he was going to be, a next up-and-coming great head coach, there's probably a lot of people in the locker room that say, he's not more qualified to do this job than Jim Schwartz is. Jim Schwartz has already been a head coach at one point in time.
Yeah.
He already runs the defense. We arguably got one of the best defense in the league. Your best players play very well under him, and he's familiar. So those are all of the things
and
that
I could say, again, this doesn't happen all the time, but I bet there were a lot of fans that when the Rams hired Sean McVay would have rather had John Gruden.
That is correct.
So
because it's name brand recognition,
exactly,
and we don't know.
And you never know. Like maybe this guy, maybe in the end they decide to make Jim Schwartz the head coach.
He's interviewing Thursday. That just came out as well. So him and Reese will both interview Thursday.
And they're like, well, we like this guy. Maybe they make him the defensive coordinator, and Jim Schwartz is a veteran. Is like, okay, I'll call the plays the first year. I'll turn it over to you the second year. And maybe he leaves Seattle for the Browns because he gets to call plays. I'm just speculating. What if that's entirely possible?
What if this is a bit of not him specifically with Reese? What if this is a bit of self-scouting? Like, what if they bring Tommy in and they want him? Because I've done this before. I've gone on interviews for these jobs, and it's like, okay, we have a revenue problem. We have a contract problem. Let me know what you would do to increase revenue based on these different things, or how would you foster a relationship with this client, or how could you make a process better? And so you go in with a whole homework project, and you basically turn it in, and if it's good enough, they'll say, ooh, you know what, we like it, we'll give you another position, but you ain't gonna get this position, right? You're not gonna get the coach position. Tommy Reese, I'm wondering if they like, listen, I want you to figure out, can you tell me what you thought of Shedeur Sanders outside of what Kevin Stefanski is? If you were going to be the coach, what is it that you would do? Do you think Deshaun Watson is washed? Which one of these quarterbacks in college would you potentially take? And some of it is intel, because you're picking the brains of people that were already in the building that know, and you could get an unfiltered kind of conversation on different ideas that you may even eventually want to implement. So I think it is smart to bring in young guys, because young people are going to have a different way of looking at it, a different perspective, and you might come across something and be like, you know what, I never thought about that, doesn't it? When we get that, we might want to implement that.
So we're up to 5 coaches that we know of that the Browns are interviewing at this point.
Of the 5, real quick.
Yeah.
And Harbaugh does not fall into this category. It's not an answer before we move on to our topic.
Yeah.
Before
Who are the 5?
Tommy Reese.
Okay.
Jim Schwartz. Dan Pitcher, the offensive coordinator for the Bengals. Aden Durde, the defensive coordinator for Seattle. And Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator for the Ravens. If you had to pick of those 5 right now, who would be your choice?
Oh, God. I guess Schwartz.
So I would go 60% Jim Schwartz, 40% the field.
Okay. Yeah, probably with you there.
40 the field.
Okay. I mean,
just simply based on names.
Monken would be my last choice. Well, no, Tommy, I won't want Tommy Reese or Monken to be the head coach. Dan Pitcher's been around a while, but I mean, he's only been a coordinator for 1 year. Or maybe it's 2 years.
Who do you guys? I mean, I think if you out of those guys, I think Schwartz's resume looks the best.
Schwartz would be the top choice out of that group of 5. By the way, if the Browns don't interview Harbaugh, it means one or two things.
He's not interested.
It means he's not interested, which is damning.
Swipe left.
Or they're not interested, which is damning. Either way, it's any team that doesn't interview Harbaugh. It doesn't say good things about that team.
There should be only one reason why they don't interview Harbaugh.
They didn't,
and it's on Harbaugh.
That's right.
They didn't make the cut. I don't think they made the cut. Like it's like,
I mean, if you're Harbaugh, wouldn't you listen to every team just to see what they got to offer?
He might. His agent might take the call.
I'm 4 years old. I've been at one organization my whole career. I mean, you've earned the right to talk to everybody.
And the interesting thing about Harbaugh is, like, if he decides to wait to make his decision, he's going to hold up all the other hiring.
Everybody, yep.
Unless teams have been specifically told that they're at But if let's say he's considering 4 different teams, none of those teams are going to hire a coach until they hear from him.
So think about it. Think about it like this. Think of another mythical radio station just popped up.
Yeah.
And they are a startup. They got a bunch of money. They come to the market. They're like, oh, we want to do a show. Bull and Fox, they on this show. Let's look at Bull and Fox, they was a great tandem. Look at the ratings. They bring y'all in and they say, hey, guys, we got a perfect opportunity for you. Mm-hmm. Radio in Cleveland, 5 hours on our station. You guys are going to look at him and be like, listen, thanks, but no thanks. Preliminary.
Depends on the money.
Unless
probably,
that bag,
a super bag.
That bag got to be crazy.
It's got to be a 5X bag.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you have that conversation, when they get on the phone with both of you, and they tell one of the person the bag, and then they tell the other person the bag, and it ain't where it would need to be, you're going to say, hey, listen, we appreciate the phone call. You know what I'm saying? We wish you the best of luck in the endeavors. But it ain't going to get to know. Y'all not going to take no time out of your busy schedules to pull up and put a suit on and go through a 3-4 hour interview. No. You're not going to send in no demo tape. I'm cool at this point.
This is the minimum the bag would have to be. I'm not saying it on the air. Minimum.
Can we see that bag?
Yeah, almost at it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the minimum.
I'd say north of that.
Yeah,
that number would be where I would start considering.
That would get me to walk in the door to interview.
Yes.
But it's 5 hours.
But I'm interviewing them, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's 5, and then here's how I know y'all, because I dealt with y'all before. You would then immediately start negotiating to get it knocked down from 5 hours.
100%.
Like it was. No. We gonna can we do 2.5? And
that's
then
what you did. That's what you get when you have the leverage. And in this situation,
That's right.
Harbaugh has
it all.
He has all the leverage.
All the leverage.
So I ain't doing that.
Guys.